All right. Thanks, Steve. My name is Katie. I know a few of you at least, and I'm the museum curator at the Heritage Lakewood Belmar Park. And my job this evening is just to give you a little bit more content and resources so you know a little bit more about where to find info on the parks. So I am going to try to share my screen here. All right. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
All right. So the reason that this program came about was because we have an exhibition right now up at Heritage Lakewood. And you can't see it in person, but hopefully soon you will be able to. And it's called Community Centers, 100 Years of Lakewood Parks. And you can learn a little bit more about that exhibition. And we do highlight a few of the parks, not all of them, but some of the ones that John will be speaking to us about this evening. And the direct link for this website is lakewood.org/exhibits. So you can check it out there. But we also have, I'm going to move to another page now, on our Facebook page and our Instagram page, if either of those are platforms that you use. If they're not, no worries, but if you do, Facebook or Instagram at Heritage Lakewood, we have some great historic photos of the parks, or what they might have been formerly, and some photographs of the exhibits as well. So check those out. We update that almost every day, so there's always new content on there, whether it's educational or exhibits, rentals, events, anything like that. So they're kind of fun platforms to see. And I also wanted to mention another project that we're working on, which is the History Photo Project. For those of us who are living through this this really unprecedented time with COVID-19, the museum is also collecting photographs of what your life experience is like. So if you're seeing more animals in your backyard, if you're seeing empty grocery stores, if you're seeing anything that's interesting to you or that really impacts you, you can go to lakewood.org and there's a virtual arts and history page. So that's lakewood.org/virtual art. And I'll post all of these links as well into the chat box after we're done here. But just to give you a sense of what it looks like. This is also a good place to find other virtual classes like Steve mentioned. There's dancing classes. We'll have other classes, history related, that'll go up on the page as well. And then lastly, I just wanted to give a quick update about the parks themselves. All of the parks are open, all 110 of them. Big Soda Lake at Bear Creek Lake Park is currently closed just because there was some overcrowding in that area, but the rest of the park is open. And then Hayden Park at Green Mountain. The rangers are occasionally closing the trailheads and parking areas, and you can see additional updates on this page, and that's just lakewood.org/parks. So you can check there for updates, or if there's any fire restrictions, and some really fun lists of parks or specific information about specific parks too. And the last thing I wanted to mention was just that we do still have some restrictions in place at Belmar Park and at other parks. We are encouraging social distancing if you go to the parks, to try to keep people 6 feet away from each other. We're encouraging wearing masks as well. And we also wanted to mention, I talked to a few of our parks guys, and they said they wanted us to encourage people to recycle and use the trash cans appropriately. So there are both trash and recycle in a lot of the parks. Some of them only have trash, but the recycle cans will have that recycle label on them, that kind of circular with the arrows emblem. And so we don't allow glass in Belmar Park anyway, but other things that you can recycle, plastics and things like that. Our parks guys said the biggest issues that they see, Shelly and Bill and TJ who work in Belmar Park, they say that people often accidentally throw away dog poop bags into the recycling bin. So they ask that people stay aware and don't do that. That's all for my section here, so I'll stop sharing and I'll go ahead and introduce our main speaker for the evening. who is John Poliga. He's a landscape architect for the city of Lakewood, and he has some great stories and great photographs about interpretive signage he's working on. And that was part of a 50th anniversary project. The city just turned 50 last year, from 1969 to 2019. And I think he'll have a little bit more information on the background of the project too, but we're hoping to put interpretive signage about the history of 10 of the parks into those parks. People are always asking, they're wondering about historical structures that are still left, or wondering how the parks got their name, things like that. And so those are in the design process now. So hopefully sometime soon you'll see those in the parks. But I'll let John go ahead and take it away.
Should I go, Stephen?
Go for it.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm John, like Katie mentioned. Host has spotlight. Okay.
I can hear you, John. Can
Can everyone hear me? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I've been working here at the city for about 20 years now. And just as a initial disclaimer, I am not a historian. All the historic research that I've undertaken has been either to influence park design for a new park, or most recently, the park site history for this signage program. So my research has been limited to specific properties and families, but I've discovered some very interesting connections, stories, and valuable insights into the past and life on this frontier that really was not very long ago when you think about it. So you'll see some of the dates coming up. I'm going to try and share my screen. I think it would be this one. Okay, so I'd like to start out the presentation with kind of a synopsis of a park site that I researched years ago up in the northeast corner of the city. In 2003, I was assigned a new park project on a site that had a fascinating history. In order to develop a theme for the design of the new park, I began looking into that history, reading the local history books, and then contacted the granddaughter of one of the former property owners. This Lakewood resident and her siblings, along with their collection of family mementos and the boxes of photographs, helped me piece together the history for Aviation Park. This property was once occupied by a famous country club that offered fine dining, dancing, and entertainment for over 60 years. The story begins with the Broadmoor Country Club, built in 1925 during the Prohibition era, interestingly enough, by Nellie Catherine Ott and her three sons, Eddie, Johnny, and George. For over 60 years, this family was active in the restaurant and nightclub scene in Denver and throughout Jefferson County, including the Rock Rest restaurant on South Golden Road that's still there, kind of a biker bar, but it's a fun little place to go to. The Ott family was known for their flamboyant style and their enduring presence in the entertainment and restaurant industry. The property for the club was selected due to its proximity to Colfax Avenue, which at the time was the main route westward out of Denver. The Broadmoor was known for its fine dining, dancing, elegant clubhouse, and gardens. The Mission Revival style clubhouse featured a curvilinear parapet and stucco exterior surrounded by landscape gardens and shady lawns. And you can see in the right-hand bottom, this is when the facility was under construction. So there's not much gardens around it in this image. The club's popularity was supported by easy access from Colfax and the newfound freedom of the automobile. Membership dues were charged, but the club was open to all. To survive the financial hardship of the Great Depression, the club offered dining and dancing for 75 cents. Beginning in 1938, Denver's social elite flocked to Viennese Waltz Night for dancing to a 16-piece string orchestra. In summer, the club featured dancing in the outdoor pavilion and evening garden strolls. The Broadmoor served a wonderful menu served with silver and linen, It hosted private parties, including wedding receptions, rehearsal dinners, and reunions. Favorite annual events included New Year's Eve, Mardi Gras, Mexican fiestas, St. Patrick's Day, Oktoberfest, and Hawaiian luau's. In 1948, following World War II, the club entered a semi-patriotic service when the Otts were approached by several airplane pilot and other aviation groups about leasing the facility as a private club. This proposal appealed to Johnny and Eddie Ott, who had both served in the military. The facility was renamed the Aviation Country Club. Although private, the club accepted qualified applicants approved by the board of directors. The Aviation Club perpetuated its image as a sophisticated and friendly club with membership dues, a dress code, and upscale amenities such as valet parking. The club hosted the first Sunday brunch experience in the Denver area. Over the years, leisure activities expanded to include a swimming pool, a lighted 9-hole pitch and putt golf course, croquet lawn, and tennis courts. The club continued to feature world-class musical entertainment, including performances by the Lawrence Welk Orchestra. Population growth in the surrounding neighborhoods helped increase membership to over 4,000. Eventually, the aviation groups relinquished their lease, but the Otts continued operating under the well-known Aviation Club name. The club continued operations until 1974, when Johnny Ott died from smoke inhalation from a kitchen fire in the building. The club reopened from 1980 to 1990 before closing permanently. The vacant clubhouse fell into disrepair and the building and facilities were torn down in 1995. The city of Lakewood acquired the portion of the property in 1999. The design of many of the park features reflects the colorful history of the Aviation Club. You can see the Quonset hut type of shelters, the airplane here in the front entrance to the park. There's the Aviation Club logo from their letterhead that's in the columns at the park entrance, propeller on the park sign, and then I designed a bunch of stamps to stick into the paths and concrete around the site. And there's a windsock, so it's got a kind of a big aviation theme going. So this is an example of a history interpretive sign that we did and posted up in the park to tell the story of that particular site. So I imagine most of you are aware of the 50th anniversary that Lakewood had last year for incorporation. The Community Resources Department took the lead and role in organizing activities and marketing for this milestone. And one of the programs approved by City Council was to celebrate the families and the history of some of Lakewood's pioneers and founders. I was lucky enough to be chosen to undertake the historic research for 10 park sites, like Katie had mentioned. So if you'll bear with me, I'd like to take you on a brief journey through 5 of these properties and introduce you to some of the characters who called Lakewood home and helped establish the community and parks that we enjoy today. Edinburgh Park is where Ohio native John Edward Everett founded his homestead. At 7 years old, Everett journeyed to Denver with his parents by oxen train. As a young adult, he journeyed west to stake his claim, south of Alameda Avenue and west of Garrison Street. One story goes that the train he was on, the Golden Spur of the Denver Pacific, was stopped for several hours by a herd of buffalo. He got off the train and decided to stay on the treeless plain. Not having much to work with, John scavenged materials to build a unique home. He stretched cloth between posts and covered it with several layers of clay mud. And for a roof, he used Chinese tea tins salvaged from Denver merchants. He grew hay and vegetables with water from the agricultural ditch that he helped to build, raised draft and racehorses, named one after himself. In that colorized photo, that's John Everett, the horses. And he started a freight business in the winter to have something to do. So for a time, he hauled vegetables to mountain mining camps in the winter over Weston and Argentine passes. The story is told that in Leadville, he could sell a head of cabbage for $22 and receive payment in gold dust. Everett married Eva Miura in 1883 and raised two daughters, Edna and Lura. With his lucrative freighting business, he was able to improve and expand the farm. In 1895, Everett built a new house and later a large barn with logs as large as 32 inches that he hauled from Evergreen. It was an area landmark until it burned down in 1972. The barn housed his prized thoroughbreds that he loved to race at the Jacob Downing Ranch, which is now part of the Federal Center. Yes, it was the same Downing who was at the Sand Creek Massacre. The farm ultimately expanded to over 400 acres. Previously, the land had been granted to the Union Pacific Railroad, and Everett had to hire a lawyer, and it went all the way to the state Supreme Court to get his homestead title, which was signed by Grover Cleveland. If you look down here in the bottom right hand, it says President Grover Cleveland. So one of the ancestors has this framed in and posted up in his house. He wouldn't let me take it out of the frame. In 1910, his daughter, Lura Della, she went by Della Everett, married George Allen Edinburgh, the son of a neighbor. As a wedding gift, the Everetts gave the couple 10 acres of their farm, where they settled and had three sons, Richard Radcliffe, who went by Rags, and Thomas. And this is where they put their farm down here. The Edinburghs transitioned from farming to the dairy business, then to raising and processing turkeys, and had up to 5,000 at one time. Rags toured as a professional roller skater, then married his partner Nina Tubbs. One of their favorite tricks, story has it, was that she'd put a match in her mouth and light it on the pavement. Crazy. Richard and Rags both served in World War II. Rags was killed in 1945 in a plane crash in Guam and is memorialized on this memorial at Lakewood High School on the first line. Tom, the guy in the top hat, managed the farm with his mother. He studied fine arts in college and became an accomplished painter, embroiderer, and amateur geologist. The two of them traveled extensively, collecting rocks from around the country. Friends also brought rocks to contribute to their collection. In 1954, they completed a new house with a large fireplace containing stones from around the world and allegedly Native American artifacts found in the area. After his passing, Tom's rock collection was donated and displayed at the Denver Museum of Natural History. So the fireplace still stands, and the dedication for this 104-acre park took place in 1989 with Tom's fireplace, stone columns, and the farm's 1940s windmill remaining to honor this pioneer family and the important role they played in establishing the community. So you can see here, Tom was a pretty good painter. Quite a few of his paintings and other things still are hanging out in families' basements and things. All right, Kendrick Lake. James and Pantha Kendrick moved their family by rail west from Ohio in 1874 and settled in Morrison, where they operated the Kendrick Hotel. 6 years later, in 1880, they purchased 160 acres of land at the southwest corner of Jewell Avenue and Kipling Street and took up farming and ranching. They paid $700 for their first 80 acres. For a house, they purchased and relocated an old log stage stop hotel from the mouth of Turkey Creek Canyon near where the Fort Restaurant is right today. The structure was rebuilt with new siding on the southeast corner of their property on the west side of Kipling at the top of the hill where it still stands today. It's Lakewood's last and only remaining stage stop. The Kendricks had 8 children. They had their hands full. Their son Frank Clarence Kendrick, married Emily France in 1884 and purchased 80 acres adjacent to his parents on the east side of Kipling Street and had 3 children. This is the brick house on the top right was Frank's house, which is no longer still there, but it was a pretty cool house. Over time, the Kendrick family, with all their children and extended family, acquired and or leased much more land in the area, extending eastward all the way to Sheridan Boulevard, including the former Green Gables Country Club. Kendrick Lake and the Ward Ditch are 2 of the many irrigation features that Frank and his family helped build in the 1880s. In 1889, while working as a railroad surveyor, Frank led the first survey party 160 miles down a remote, uncharted stretch of the Colorado River from Grand Junction for a proposed Denver, Colorado, Canyon, and Pacific Railroad. This harrowing journey required negotiating dangerous rapids and portaging equipment over long inland treks. The journey ran longer than expected, and food ran dangerously low toward the end of their 52-day trip. Kendrick determined the rail route was feasible, but the project was later abandoned. His journal of the trip was published as a story in the Colorado Magazine in 1964. Kendrick was an accomplished engineer and later worked as an engineer on reservoir and irrigation projects in Jefferson County, Utah, Idaho, Wyoming, and Nebraska, and helped create most of the reservoirs in the Bear Creek Valley. He also helped engineer several mines in Colorado and a major smelter in Silverton. At the time of his sudden death at the age of 55, he was chief engineer for the Verde Water and Power Company in Arizona. You can see that this, I don't know the date on this aerial photo, but here's Kendrick Lake. This was Frank's house here on the corner up here. Here's the old stage stop house. And this is Garrison Street, and interestingly enough, it now goes straight through this lake. The lake's not there anymore. It used to go around like that. Anyway, you can see there wasn't much out here at that point. Foothills Park and Recreation District began purchasing land for Kendrick Lakes Park, which is around this lake, in 1968, and it was developed in phases from 74 to 84. The 57-acre park was acquired by Lakewood in 2000. This park boasts one of the region's most beautiful and extensive airscape demonstration gardens for public education and enjoyment. Carmody Park. After immigrating to New York in 1904, Irishman Lawrence Carmody moved to Denver, where he operated the Killarney Arms Saloon, frequented by Buffalo Bill Cody. On the verge of prohibition, he sold his stake in the bar, and in 1912 purchased a house on 160 acres of the Kendrick Ranch west of Kipling Street, where he operated a farm and a dairy. In 1919, Carmody married Mary Ellen Brady, another Irish immigrant who had made her way alone from New York to Denver as a 12-year-old. The couple had 4 children, and their farm eventually grew to 320 acres and was irrigated by the Ward Ditch. Their house, you might recognize here, was a 13-room log structure, a former stage stop known as the Halfway House, on the Spotswood-McClellan stage route from Denver to Morrison. This is the same house as they bought from the Kendricks, right? Even though it was no longer a stage stop, people still stopped there, and the Carmodys allowed them to, and they developed a reputation for hospitality. The Halfway House building still stands at the top of Carmody Hill on the west side of Kipling Street at Carmody Lane. Yep, same house. Bottom right is kind of what it looks like today. Top left is an older version of the same house. And then the top right picture I found interesting, when they used to just graze their cows wherever, and that was up on the flanks of Green Mountain, and they'd send the kids up to find them. Okay, we went there. In the early 50s, the family began selling land for homes, using some of the profits to finally revisit their beloved Ireland in 1955. The South Jeffco Metro Recreation and Park District, which is now Foothills Parks and Rec, purchased the Carmody Park site on the east side of Kipling Street in 1965 from a man named Glen Marsha. They opened their community recreation center and playfield in 1970. Pools and locker rooms were added in 72. The pool roof came later in 75, and the gymnasium not till 84. The facility was renamed for the Carmody family in 1982. And Lakewood acquired Foothills Rec's assets within the city boundaries in the year 2000. Okane Park. This story began in 1901 when Irish miner Bernard Barney Okane purchased 5 acres on West First Avenue from settler William Fraser for $1,000. He married fellow Irish immigrant Elizabeth Bonnie McGillen in 1903, and the newlyweds started the Harp Dairy, delivering milk to Denver in a wagon with an Irish harp painted on the side. The Okanes also raised hay, alfalfa, and chickens, and pressed apples for cider on a farm that later grew to 28 acres and remained in the family for 100 years. Barney Sr. died of influenza during the Spanish flu pandemic of 1918. Sound familiar, right? Leaving Bonnie to tend the farm and raise 5 children, including twins Bernard Jr. and Elizabeth, born just after their father's death. The children helped at the farm and attended the nearby Washington Heights School. Photo on the bottom right. Look at those kids. They're just adorable, aren't they? The dairy operated until the early 1940s, and the fields produced hay into the 1970s. Barney Jr. became the most recognized of the children. He graduated from the University of Denver, served in the Army Air Corps during World War II, and later earned a law degree. Barney Jr. lived at the farm until he married socialite Joanne Little in 1958. Okane served 2 terms as president of the Lakewood Chamber of Commerce in the early 1950s and was elected to the State House of Representatives in 1954. 2 years later, he became district attorney for the 1st Judicial District, where he launched an aggressive campaign to end illegal gambling, earning him Jefferson County Man of the Year honors in 1957. He even went after and closed down church bingo games, making a lot of friends there. In 1978, the Okane family sold most of their acreage to the city for parkland. The 28-acre park opened in 1985. In 2001, the city of Lakewood acquired the historic farmhouse and outbuildings and are preserving the complex as a rare surviving example of the community's agricultural heritage. The Okane Farm was designated as Lakewood's first local historic district in 2017. And last but not least, Morris Park. You can see in this 1946 aerial, the area that I am circling right now is where Morris Park is today, from 20th to Allison to Carr Street, which is barely even registering here on this map. I just love these old pictures. So the founding of Morris Park was initiated with State Representative George Priest, who incidentally was raised on a rabbit and chinchilla farm at Colfax and Quail, the current site of Philnor Liquor Store. Priest was instrumental in getting legislation passed in 1941 that legalized the creation of local recreation districts and enabled the acquisition of land for Lakewood Park, which was Morris Park's original name. The land was purchased by the county for development by the local recreation district. In 1946, near the start of the post-World War II population boom, the Lakewood Recreational Park Association formed and began raising funds for the pool. Here's a little flyer that they sent out to try and raise money. It's a classic. The most popular way to raise money was also the community's social event of the year, an annual summer festival and parade down Colfax Avenue. Lakewood Women's Club also appeared on local television to publicize the need for a pool, and local children went door to door to ask for donations. Children in this area had been deprived of the opportunity to visit public pools due to the spread of polio at these facilities. Another disease, here we go. The polio virus attacked nerve cells, causing paralysis or even death, and peaked in the 1940s and early 50s. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt was a rare adult victim of the disease, and here's a rare picture of him that he allowed of him in his wheelchair. The discovery and use of the polio vaccine in the 1950s made it safe for children to visit public pools. Much of the pool design work was pro bono, and community leaders helped with the construction. Over 10,000 residents attended the pool's opening, the highlight of the 1954 Summer Festival. In 1960, the Park Association Board voted to rename the park to honor the longtime community leader Carl G. Morris, pictured on the right. Morris was a Jefferson County Commissioner for 10 years and was instrumental in getting the park deeded to the county. He also served on the Lakewood School Board, established the East Jefferson Sanitation District, and was director of the Consolidated Mutual Water Company, and was the first president of the Lakewood Kiwanis Club. The city acquired the 19-acre park from the county in 1969 when the city incorporated. I love the swimming pool rates. For a swimming lesson, 25 cents. So currently, our graphics team here in Community Resources is developing the final graphic designs for the 10 park history signs. Here's a draft of the park sign for Ritchie Park. Look for the signs to be posted later this spring. Thank you, and let me know if you have any questions. And if I got anything wrong, because nothing's been published yet, and it would be great to get it fixed now.
John, that was great. Loved it.
That was awesome, John.
Thank you. I got to find you guys. I don't know how to pull you back up now.
There we go. Let me go.
I'm curious, was it just coincidence that you had a couple folks from Ohio come out this way? Because those are my roots, and how is it I landed here where they did?
To be determined.
John, we have a question. What is that very last photo of that you showed?
Oh, you know what? Let me see if I can pull that back up. Can I share my screen with y'all?
Yeah, let me go ahead and I'll put your screen. Let's see here. There we go.
Wow.
Yeah. So that is, I'm trying to figure that out. This picture we got this from the archives at the Federal Center, and they had a few photos. Katie, I think you might have helped me get these or got them, from that they had taken when the federal government was looking to acquire land to build the munitions plant prior to World War II. And there was a number of photographs, allegedly of the Downing Ranch area, just north of Green Mountain. We think that's Green Mountain on the right side of the photo, but I haven't been able to figure out where it was taken from. But that supposedly is where it is. This would be the Green Mountain area.
Cool.
Yeah. I'd love to be able to figure it out. I've driven up and down 6th Avenue trying to figure it out, but there's so many trees and so many houses and stuff that I just can't really find this perspective.
Cool. Okay. Any other questions? That was, yeah, that does look like Green Mountain on the right. Oh, another question. Yeah, did you see, is the pool still there that you showed earlier?
Pool where?
Oh, Morse Park?
Yeah, the Morse Park. Is that it?
Yes, the Morris Park pool is definitely still there. That's what's so cool about it is it was kind of built by the community, and it's still there. You could ask the maintenance guys. It's still it's still there. Where did that one go? I'm not quite sure if that photo is actually from Morris Park. It was in the Morris Park file, this grand opening photo, but I'm not certain that that's where it is. But yeah, the pool's still there.
Cool. I have a question. How is how many rabbit and chinchilla farms were present here? Was that a common thing for the heritage of our city?
I don't know. Somebody else want to take this one?
Yeah, so strangely, there weren't many other rabbit and chinchilla farms, and I don't know much about the background of that one in particular, but there was also a fox fur farm out in the area, which is a little sad, but also interesting local history. And there was a bunch of huge turkey farms. And as far as I know, the reason behind that is just because there was a lot more land out here west of Denver. And so people could get it a little bit more cheaply in the earlier years. So there were a lot of kind of random farms that served especially the Denver area. So there was rabbit farm, chinchilla farm, fox fur, and all kinds of other random things. A lot of dog training areas, horse training out in the Lakewood area. So, but yeah, I don't know too much about the rabbit and chinchilla farm specifically. So we might have to find out more about that.
Any idea about when it was there?
John, do you happen to know what era that was? I know most of the kind of turkey and fox fur farms were like 1930s through the 50s or so.
Yeah. I think
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, because I lost my screen. No, I'm not sure exactly when that was. There was in one of the Lakewood history books is where I found this stuff about George Priest. I think it was in 50 Stories. Maybe not, but I'm not sure. It was early 20s time period, I'm thinking.
okay.
Something like that.
So it was before Fillmore was ever there.
Yes, but I do think that if I remember correctly, his family built that. I don't know if you recall that there was a post office there and another store before Fillmore, before it was Fillmore Drugs, before it was Liquors. But I believe that their family developed that shopping building on that site.
Well, my wine that I'm drinking is from Fillmore.
There you go.
Okay,
I got it back.
John, there was a question here. What was the most shocking fact that you learned when doing all of this research? Because you did a lot.
Shocking. Well, we went through the Everett family and how the Everetts married into the Edinburghs or vice versa. It turns out that after they, I forgot the first name, but Tom's dad, who the park was, George, after they had 3 kids, he boogied for California, never to be heard from again. And they were divorced 1930, I believe. The divorce was final, but and the Everetts were always a little bit upset about naming it Edinburgh Park because they had settled the land and developed the land, and the Edinburghs were almost Johnny-come-latelys, and then boogied on the family, and so it ended up being named Edinburgh because the city purchased it from the Edinburghs against their their wishes really. But anyway, the Everetts are still hanging out and have been on their land at the corner of Garrison and Alameda for since they built those residences for well over 100 years. And their great grandkids now are running a little farm operation over there. And so they told us that they qualified as being the longest running family farm in Jefferson County. Because they're still, you are muted, Steve. Yes, you're muted.
That's
There
awesome.
you go. You want to unmute people, Steve? Can you do
Yeah.
that?
Is everyone able to sing? There we are. Okay, everyone should be able to mute and unmute themselves, but let me know if you're having any difficulty. Oh, hey, did anyone see, Kathy, did anyone catch the newspaper article, Doll Parade? What's the scuttlebutt with that?
Doll parade? No.
No.
The newspaper article you had said the doll parade.
Oh,
Doll parade.
I don't know.
I want to see pictures.
Yeah.
It was a simpler time back then, wasn't it?
Cool.
There's a question here about Glen Creighton Park. I don't know. Rita, is Rita on? Yes, she's muted. I don't know what question. Katie, are you familiar with a question about Glen Creighton?
I actually can't see the question. Could you read it for me, John?
Oh, it's on the chat box. I asked because there was a photo in the advertising for this event.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. Glen Creighton Park is just a kind of a tiny little landscape patch in the Glens. So I'm not sure what that was referring to. Somebody read it more closely than I did.
Yeah, the Glen Creighton Park is part of the reason that we kickstarted the exhibition that's up in the Heritage Lakewood Visitor Center right now, because it's technically the oldest park before the city became Lakewood. Back in 1920, when Cyrus and Marie Creighton purchased that land, that is now Glen Creighton. So it's north of Colfax, kind of by Davy's Diner. And they started designing that area to be the first designed subdivision in what would become Lakewood. And so that's officially the first designed park, even though it's one of the tiniest parks. It's just a little triangle. So that's the one that's from back in 1920, and that's how we've got 100 years of Lakewood parks. And that whole area has a really interesting history anyway. That whole development of the space, it doesn't have, it's got winding streets, it doesn't have a lot of sidewalks, it has lots of trees. All of the streets are named Glen something. But there's a little bit more information about that in the exhibition and in the photographs that you can see on Facebook until we reopen the museum. But that whole area has a really interesting history. So I know we didn't talk about it much in the program, but that was what we wanted to mention, that since it's kind of what kicked off the exhibit.
Oh, okay.
Cool. John, there's Edinburgh Park, but also a little south of that is Edinburgh School. Yeah, I assume that the school had moved, or is there a story behind the Edinburgh School? Did it used to be placed closer to
The school directly south of Edinburgh Park, it's not named Edinburgh School.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's actually called Belmar.
Belmar. I'm sorry. South of like 285, there's I think it might be a private school named Edinburgh School, and
I don't know. There.
Edinburgh Classical Academy, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the connection is with the family or the park. Maybe they just chose an area name.
Okay, yeah. I was gonna see if there was a site there, but yeah, the Belmar is right there. Cool.
There was some research, there was a photograph in the research that Mary Therese provided about Edinburgh Alley in Denver, and there was a photo of it, but I couldn't make a connection at all.
Cool. I went to Everett.
Well, and that was named after the family because the Everett family was very involved in forming the small school district that was around here at the time.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And you went there. Wow.
I did too.
Whoa,
Really?
really?
I did. I'm not going to tell you when, but yeah, I did.
Just a couple years ago.
Yeah. It's still there too.
Did students still cause trouble at the bridge back then?
Of course.
Yep. That's awesome.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think the Carmody Park story was my favorite. I want to know more about that mom that traveled out here when she was 12 years old by herself.
Yeah, I guess she came over from, when she came over from Ireland, she was with an uncle and a cousin or something, and then for some reason they weren't able to continue on, and she's like, screw it, I'm going. It's amazing some of the stuff that people put up with back then. Yeah.
Really neat.
Is there any? Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to mention with the Carmodys, that one was really fun too, because with the Everett family and the Carmody family, we actually got to talk to the descendants and get oral histories from them because a lot of them still live in the area. So we got to talk to, I guess it was the grandkids maybe of, great-grandkids maybe of great-grandkids of the original Carmodys, and they still live in the area and they're great. They've got all these cool photos and great family stories. So it was really fun to talk to them.
Yeah, we visited with Mary at her place, and then
she's also named Mary.
Right.
The great-grandchild.
One of her siblings lives in Australia, and he emailed me back and forth, was scanning some photos and things from Australia. And then there's an Edinburgh, Cliff Edinburgh, who lives kind of, Steve, where you had just mentioned, down near Quincy and Kipling.
Yeah.
And I was down at his house a couple times going through. He helped clean out the house before it was demolished at Edinburgh Park when they were developing the park. And so he cleaned out all of Tom's paintings and embroidery and rocks, and had stories. Oh, could have spent weeks with that guy with some of the stories that he had.
Cool.
Pretty amazing.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess Tom was a real character.
Seems like the history of Lakewood is rife with characters. No shortage of them.
Right.
How cool. Well, does anyone else have any questions, any memories, anything that they found, just wild, zany, weird, creepy, any of the above that as long as John is here that we can ask him?
Well, I've heard that the stones in the Edinburgh fireplace, there's representation from all of the 50 states. Do you know anything about that?
Well, it depends on what you read. I have read that there was things from all 50 states. There was another story there. There was an Indian trail, a Native American trail that crossed the property back in the day when the Everett settled it, called the Cherokee Trail, or at least that's what the family calls it, the Cherokee Trail. And somewhere to the west, either on Green Mountain or towards Green Mountain, was an area they called Bead Hill. And I guess the Edinburghs used to go on that trail, and they'd find Native American artifacts on Bead Hill, and they bring them back, and supposedly there's some embedded in the fireplace. And we have photos of the house before it was demolished, and the fireplace goes down into the basement also. So there's a whole nother story of stones underground that we don't know what's embedded in the fireplace. So it could be all down there, but evidently there was beads and trinkets and other things that people have probably stolen over the years, dug them out of the fireplace, or maybe they're buried. But there was supposed to be some of those grinding like mortars where the Native Americans would grind their grain and make like a bowl shape in a rock. There's some of those in there. Cliff Edinburgh, the nephew of Tom, was telling us that when they donated his rock collection to the Denver Museum of Natural History, it was worth over $1 million, and they had to pay taxes on it. I don't know how that all works. I don't know if I believe a lot of these stories, but that's what he said. Yeah. So, yeah, lots of stuff in the fireplace. And now, I don't know if you've been out there since the art piece was installed, but there's kind of a cool reflective art installation around the fireplace area. Just check it out. It's pretty cool. Even just driving down Garrison, it's cool.
Mm-hmm. Great question. Great question. Anyone else? Anyone else have a question or a comment or a memory?
I remember playing bingo at the Aviation Club.
Do you?
Yeah.
Wow. Have you been back to see the park?
I haven't walked around it. I've seen it from the street. So yeah, that's a good walk there in the 40 West District, you know.
Yeah, it's on the art line.
Yeah.
So it's worth a little tool around sometime. You can go read the interpretive sign.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Get out now.
It's fun to do one of them, and then they gave me 10. But it was really interesting research. I learned a lot.
All right. Anyone else? Okay. Well, John, that was fascinating. Thank you very much. That's I want to go out and read even more of, explore more of Lakewood parks and read even more of the signs. So thank you very much. That was
my pleasure.
Excellent. Should we go ahead?
Thanks for coming, everyone. I appreciate you being there. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, okay, my friends. So, yeah, unless there's any other questions, it looks like dinner is getting ready for a few people. Others have to go. And yeah, I've been snacking on hummus and chips, but I think dinner is coming up. So I want to, well, we all want to thank you so much for attending and coming here virtually. And John, thanks so much for the presentation. All of our guests, thank you. Again, this is it's a no fee, so there's a link where you can donate. I know I saw some donations to this if want to keep up the programs going and the events and all the amazing work that Heritage Lakewood has going on. But yeah, so if you have any questions, if you have any feedback, reach out to me. You have my email. You can respond to any of the emails that I sent out before and it'll get to me. Yeah, does anyone else have any closing thoughts, anything that you want to share with the group? Okay, that makes it easy. All right, everyone, John, thank you so very much. Everyone, thank you for attending. Have an excellent evening. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you online or out and about.
All right, everybody, be safe, be kind.
Yep.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.